Hello and welcome. You're watching Traders Next Door. I'm your host Ed Katashabe from Forex Insights SA, and this is the Daily Scoop. Fears of a recession are starting to loom in the US after all the aftermath of the trade wars that have come into question. Donald Trump made good on all his threats of introducing tariffs into the equation, and the after effects have been tremendous. Some experts predict there is up to a 50% chance the US is going to see a recession come end of this year. And this coming despite all the work the Fed has done to try and guarantee a soft landing on inflation, which they were very much on track with. But the spanner in the works that are tariffs has proven that it is going to make that job extremely tricky. The tariff disruption that is going to be an ongoing battle is going to make things very difficult for the Fed. On the one hand, the Fed has to contend with the downside risk of economic growth while contending with the upside risks of inflation, and trying to balance those two with tariff negotiations ongoing and a trade war between the US and China looming is going to prove to be very difficult. Now, currently there is a 90-day pause to allow for negotiations between the US and a lot of other nations, which does give the Fed a little bit of time to come up with a plan of action. This does not mean that it is going to be easy for them, however. We are not getting a pause on tariffs with the likes of China, which is going to prove very problematic. China is set to receive a tariff as high as 125%, and this is going to prove very tricky for the Fed to have to negotiate with. China seems very undeterred by these tariffs because China is making the bet that they can probably survive these tariff wars a lot better than the US can. Currently, less than 3% of China's GDP relies on foreign trade from the United States, whereas the United States, 70 to 80% of its economy is based on consumption, and a lot of that consumption is fueled by Chinese goods, or at least goods that are partly produced in China. So China's making the bet that these tariffs are actually going to hurt the US more than they're going to hurt them. So after receiving this 125% tariff, it is left to be seen how China is going to retaliate further. It is looking like this is going to be a very tit-for-tat situation between the US and China, and this could prove very problematic for the US economy. However, other countries are a lot less retaliatory in nature. A few countries like the likes of Vietnam, Australia, South Korea, and even the European Union expressing that they are willing to go down to as low as a 0% tariff on most goods and negotiate with the US for more fair trade arrangements. So it is left to be seen how this is going to impact what the long-term projections are going to be, but it is going to make things very interesting going forward. A trade war like we're having right now has not been seen in the global scale for the last several years. So right now, a lot of this is really unprecedented. However, we do know that the likes of these is going to result in a lot of volatility in the markets. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs as the market tries to settle and figure out what is going to go on. With the negotiations between the US and these other countries, if they prove favorable, this might look good for the US economy, this might look good for the US dollar. However, things with China being as turbulent as they are, that might prove problematic as well. So right now, it's anyone's guess whether a recession is going to come into effect or not, but we do know when it comes to the markets and trading them that there's going to be a lot of volatility, and if you happen to be on the right side of price, there is a lot of money to be made. And you can take full advantage of that by getting yourself a Vault Funder account. You can use the code FISA, F-I-S-A, to get yourself 30% off any Vault Funder account today. Go ahead and make the opportunities when the opportunities are there for you to take them. I've been Ed Cat. This has been Forex Insights SA presenting Traders Next Door, and you have just heard the Daily Scoop.